2030 economic performance and challenges. Well, actually, Egypt shifted from Millennium Development Goals to Sustainable Development Strategy. Egypt's Vision 2030 strategy in February 2016. The strategy is compatible with, can I see the strategy is compatible with the 17 SDGs as well as African Agenda 2063 and acts as a framework for development programs and projects that will be implemented until 2030. Egypt's Vision 2030 reflects the three dimensions of sustainable development: the economic dimension, social dimension, and environmental dimension. Following the launch of the strategy, the government of Egypt makes the reform in phases. During the first phase of the reform, actually Egypt embarked on a bold national program aimed at stabilizing its fundamental and setting up several of central structures. This phase showed extremely promising trends. The government of Egypt has achieved remarkable progress in the indicators of achieving the 4 economic SDGs goals. The 4 economic SDGs are decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, and partnership for the goal. Regarding the progress of economic indicators, the first economic SDG, number 8, this about decent work and economic growth. The attributed to the fundamental macroeconomics and structural reforms made by the government of Egypt. Egypt's economy made a strong recovery after the big drop in growth that followed the Arab uprising in 2011. Real output growth went from as low as 2.9 in 13-14 to register 5.3 and 5.6 in 17-18 and 18-19 respectively. As a result of significant public investment and domestic consumption accompanied by a primary budget surplus, sustainable debt levels, and stronger foreign reserves. Actually, unemployment decreased from 11.8 in 17 to reach 7.9 in 19, as shown in the figure. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, the single-digit unemployment was maintained during 2020, increasing in Q2 to 9.6, but returning to its downward trend to reach 7.2, as shown in the figure. The external sector in Egypt reaped the success of the strong fundamentals and restoration of political and economic stability. Where are we? This will stop other screen sharing. Do you want to continue? Yes. Huh? Then the SDG number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. With regard to infrastructure, Egypt has notable progress over the past few years in its transport, utility, and communications infrastructure. This progress is reflected in Egypt's ranking in the index, such as its ranking in the global competitiveness in its transport infrastructure, climbing from 55th in 17 to 44 in 19. As for industry, the value added of non-oil manufacturing percentage of GDP witnessed a decline from 12.7 in 18 to regarding the SDG 10, reduce inequalities. Well, actually, there is also progress in reducing the urban the reducing urban divide, economic divide. Poverty rates in rural areas dropped faster in urban areas from 38.4 in 17-18 to 34 in 19-20. This meant shrinking the difference between rural and urban areas from 13.8 to 11 points. Regarding the SDG 17, Partnership for the Good, strengthening the means of implementation of Sustainable Development Agenda is the main key to reaching Egypt's goals and targets. Well, actually, toward this end, Egypt has worked on strengthening regional and international relations. Regarding the many actions have been taken, like World Youth Forum, on an annual basis, engaging with youth globally in an enriching setting, allowing them to exchange views and recommend initiatives to decision makers and influential figures. Under the values of unified destiny, in 2019, Egypt utilized its role as a partner with the African Union to strengthen the cooperation between African nations in priorities such as economic and regional integration, building bridges among African people, and institutional and financial reform of the African Union. Egypt has similarly directed efforts toward building relations with the Arab states, with the focus on preserving peace and security, supported the Libyan people and the Lebanese people as well. Egypt also led the efforts towards institutionalizing the intelligence cooperation by paving the way for the Arab Intelligence Forum and hosting its headquarters in Cairo. Egypt has a long history with the reform of focusing on the supply side or the real side of the economy. Here are the fluctuations of GDP growth rate according to different phases when we adopt the open door policy, and then economic reform and structural adjustment program, economic reform program 24, and again in 60. To break this vicious circle and starting from the government of Egypt entered negotiations with the IMF and OECD to begin a structural reform program supported by the IMF in recent years. This about the economic performance regarding the 4 SDGs, economic SDGs. Regarding challenges, there are 2 different challenges: major international challenges and local challenges of sustainable economy. Concerning the major international challenges for Egypt, the first one is COVID-19, and the second one is the Russian and Ukraine war. In 2021, after the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, Egypt has entered the second phase. This phase, the second set of reforms, has been implemented to boost the supply side of the Egyptian economy. This was implemented in two phases, short-term and medium-term. With the implementation of the National Structural Reform Program, the government of Egypt is aiming to reach well-defined quantitative targets in the macroeconomic indicators by 2023-24. Here are the figures showing that according to the report of United Nations, ESWA, Egypt scored the highest implementation for the sustainable development, reached to 50%, while other Arab countries, maybe they don't reach this percentage. The effect of COVID pandemic on the 17 SDGs was negatively, as shown in the figure aside. Aligned with the global economy, the pandemic has reduced economic growth in Egypt, although not significant. Egypt's GDP per capita growth for 2020 has dropped to 0.4 as opposed to 2.1% without COVID, as shown in the figure. With COVID 2020 and no COVID before 2020. Despite the adverse shock on the Egyptian economy, the successful implementation of the economic stabilization and reform program diluted the effect of the pandemic, leaving the Egyptian economy among the very few countries in the MENA region to register positive percentage. The Ukraine war, this is the second challenge, the international challenge. The Ukraine war poses a new challenge facing the Egyptian government. The Ukraine war has a clear, direct, and indirect. Actually, Russia is the third largest oil producer, and the price of Brent oil has increased by 25% since the onset of the war. Here are the direct effects on the left-hand side and indirect effects on the other side. The direct effects, first of all, reflects on oil prices, longer-term growth opportunities for gas-rich countries, costly inputs, slow recovery in the tourism sector, and finally reduced supply of energy from Russia. The indirect effects, impact on growth and acceleration of inflation and transformation of energy structure. The human impacts of the crisis on poverty and hunger in Egypt. Actually, Egypt will be affected with the Ukraine war because it's one of the most countries that imports its wheat from Ukraine and Russia. About 72% of its grain consumption from Ukraine and Russia. The second challenge of the second type of challenges is the local challenges. Besides the international challenges. The local challenges are mainly four challenges: youth unemployment, informal sector, women empowerment, and population growth. These are the four local constitute the biggest challenges that the government faced in order to achieve its development goals in the past, and they are still ongoing until now. Youth unemployment, despite the improvement in general unemployment rates since 2017, high youth unemployment still persists. The age group 18 to 29 years represents 21% of the population. During 2020, unemployment rates were 18.2 in the 24 age, and 10.5 for the group 25 until 29. While these rates constitute a decrease since 2018, they are high compared to general unemployment of less than 8%. Unemployment is also significantly higher among young women, reaching 45.8% in 20 to 24 age group in 2020 and 30.4 in the 25 to 29 age group during the same year. The second challenge is the informal sector. Also possess another major challenge to the economy, which accounts for 55.3 in 2020 of total employment compared to 52 in 2018. The Minister of Planning explained that the plans and the policies that were put in place to achieve the global to achieve the goal were represented in the initiatives of 3 actions: financial inclusion, mechanization of services, and incentives in the small and medium enterprises law. Here are the 2 figures displaying the youth unemployment and the informal sector which are the 2 challenges, the first 2 challenges at the local level. Finally, or the third challenge at the local level, it's women empowerment. Egypt has made a significant leap in women empowerment and gender equality over the past decade, supported by the political leadership and the civil society. Women receive 8 ministerial portfolios within the Council of Ministers in 2021, 24% of ministerial positions compared to 11.8 in 18. Egypt is also ranked the 16th globally in the percentage of women's representation in parliament. In 2020, Egyptian women held 45% of all government jobs, which is high compared to the global average of 32%. On another front, the representation of women on the board of directors of banks increased to 12% in 19 compared to 10% in 18. In addition, in 18, the percentage of women's representation in the diplomatic corps was also relatively strong, standing at 24.8%. Here are the schedule showing the improvement in the positions in national parliament or local government in Egypt. Female unemployment dropped from 21.4 in 18 to 17.5 in 20, despite the pandemic, although still worse than that of men at 6, as shown in the figure. The rates of women's participation are higher than the target in the Egyptian government and state institutions, but at the national level, they have not been reached to the target of women's participation. The government of Egypt is working on financing programs to small and micro projects for women, training programs to qualify women for the labor market, and gender responsive plans and budget to take into account the social dimension when developing state plans and budget. Well, the fourth local challenge is high population growth. Egypt exposing a rapid and steady increasing in population growth. The Egyptian population pyramid, according to the 26 years and 2017 census, clarified that the broad base in 6 was young people from the age of 15 to 24, while in 17 census, it became from the age of 0 to the age of 9, as it is the most age group A number, representing 25% of the population that would enter the marriage age in 3042. The total fertility rate in 17 was an average of 3.4 children per woman, and the medium moderate scenario targeted a target of 2.4 children per woman in 2032, and in 2052, a target of 1.9 children per woman. If action is not taken to take the necessary population policies, it's expected that there will be another population boom in the period between 2030 and 2042. Finally, we reached our the last challenges. These were two challenges, one at the national level and one at the international level. At the international level was 2 challenges: the Ukraine-Russian war and COVID-19. Regarding the 4 challenges at the local level, were 4 challenges: youth unemployment and high population growth, women empowerment, and finally the unemployment. Okay, thank you so much, and thank you again, Dr. Datta. Thanks for Dr. Adada, and many thanks for Dr. Ghadir, who dedicated her time and efforts to finish or to organize the conference, which is under the title, the 11th International Conference on Restructuring of the Global Economy. Thank you so much.